At every 2024 campaign rally for former President Donald Trump, he makes a vow.
We will demolish the deep state. We will demolish the deep state. We will demolish the deep state.
The deep state is his named enemy, federal workers who Trump believes conspire against him.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption.
Trump's 10-point plan in his campaign website outlines sweeping changes he wants to make to government agencies.
Faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies.
The end result would erase federal worker protections that have been in place for more than 140 years, eliminate entire departments, and consolidate power around Trump. To understand the impact of what could happen in Trump's second term, you only have to look at his first.
I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats.
That executive order he signed just before losing the 2020 election turns government jobs into political appointments.
And that was just the beginning, an omen of what was to come from a tyrant wannabe, lunatic, and criminal convicted felon.
Today, the president made what are widely called unusual, perhaps unprecedented remarks in the modern era. And I'm going to show you exactly what he said and why military veterans and many other experts on a nonpartisan basis say this is one of those inflection points you need to confront.
Well, his speech yesterday not so subtly called for an invasion of targeted blue cities by suggesting that they, the military, are used in the cities for quote-unquote training purposes against the enemy within, as Ari Melba reports. Major General Enyart, retired, speaking on MSNBC, clearly stated that the words used by Trump were Hitleresque, just as I had suggested were the model for my hypothesis of parallels between Hitler and Trump in my last podcast, Mystery Meeting.
You know, the words that Donald Trump used today, enemy from within, I mean, that's Hitleresque. That is right out of Nazi Germany. That is not constitutional speech. That is not the speech that we stand for in this country, where we believe in the rule of law, and the way that he talks about cities. That cities are full of his enemies. Why? Because they voted for Democrats. They voted blue. And so they have become his enemies. And that he wants to use the military in our cities. The military is designed, and our mission is to, excuse me for saying our, you know, after 36 years, I'm still our.
I think you're entitled to own it.
But, you know, after the military is to protect our nation. The military is not to police our nation. And his misuse of the military breaches the very trust that the military has in our civilian leadership. And as for Secretary of Defense Hegseth, you know, the problem he has is that he is completely incompetent. The military and the men and women who were present in that auditorium, whether they were the senior enlisted advisors, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, we value competency.
No more beardos. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay.
I've just returned to Washington, D.C. from a big gathering of hundreds of military leaders at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia. It was a rare gathering, hastily put together, of so many senior military personnel in one place. They were there to hear from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and President Donald Trump.
We became the woke department, but not anymore.
Hegseth unveiled 10 directives aimed at eliminating woke policies in the U.S. military and reinforcing the warrior ethos he's hoped to instill in the Pentagon.
No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
He also announced the U.S. military will require combatants to meet the highest male standard.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is.
Hegseth's vision was echoed by Trump, who spoke afterwards.
I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Oh, don't laugh, you're not allowed to do that. We will vanquish every danger and crush every threat to our freedom in every generation to come, because we will fight, 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 and we will win, win, win.
From where I was sitting in the venue, there was very little visible reaction from the many generals and senior enlisted personnel that were there. But they were paying very, very close attention. About 50% of them were taking notes in military field books and quietly discussing amongst themselves after Hegseth and President Trump finished speaking.
Instead, he used those powers, summoning these people up and down the rank, to talk politics, to talk partisanship, to talk about how he wants to use the military on you, if you are watching this inside America. That, of course, breaks with a long nonpartisan tradition of how to address the military. There's also the discussion in here that the Pentagon should regard U.S. cities as, quote, a big part of war.
Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone. They're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. The radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military, because we're going into Chicago very soon.
Jamie Raskin and Mark Elias, for whom I have the utmost respect, both of these people, speak out on Trump's invasion of our cities as a means to retain power.
I want to ask you about what is happening with Donald Trump and American cities. And I want to broaden this from the discussion that I see in so many places, which is really about Washington, D.C. And don't get me wrong, you work in Washington, D.C., I work in Washington, D.C., both of us live around Washington, D.C. So what is happening there is an absolute travesty in my estimation, in my opinion. But I think it is wrong for people to think that Donald Trump only wants to deploy the National Guard and the military in Washington, D.C. And we know this because actually the first city he sent in the National Guard, the first city in which he sent in the Marines was actually Los Angeles. And, you know, we're seeing him have a back and forth now with Chicago. He has mentioned New York. And, you know, I don't think that this ends with just Washington, D.C. or even those cities. I think this is part of an effort by Donald Trump to put U.S. military, National Guard in blue cities. And we can talk about why that is. I think it relates in part to the 2026 elections. But talk to us a little bit, both as a member of Congress, as a student of American history and constitutional law, and also of politics. What do you make of this effort by him? What is he trying to achieve? What ground does he stand on? And do you agree with me that you think this spreads much, much further?
Well, I do want to come back at the end, Mark, to where you began, which is the elections next year, because I think ultimately this is his objective and his destination, which is to create a series of crises and pretexts for intervention that would allow him to alter the course of his electoral destiny. Right now, he's going down. I mean, they threw 17 million people off of Medicaid health care.
Yes, so at the end of the day, the question remains, what will the military do when push comes to shove and they're given an unlawful order by Trump to use full force in the cities that they invade? Or will they do what Christopher Wray swore to under oath for a Senate committee and simply resign rather than carry out an unlawful order? That is the final question.
If the president asks you to do something unlawful or unethical, what do you say?
First, I would try to talk him out of it, and if that failed, I would resign.